My fiancée slept with her boss while I covered her rent, so I secretly took back every penny. And what happened next devastated her entire world. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and for most of my life, I believed loyalty could hold a relationship together. Maybe it's because I grew up watching my parents fight through everything. Or maybe it's because I've always been the type who keeps his word, even when it hurts. Whatever the reason, when I proposed to Lily, I genuinely believed I was building a future with someone who valued commitment the same way I did. So I worked long shifts, sometimes doubles, just to make sure our bills were always covered. I didn't complain. I didn't take breaks. I just showed up and did what a man is supposed to do. Lily always said she needed time to focus on her dream job, and I supported that without blinking. I paid most of the rent so she could breathe a little and avoid stressing about money. She'd come home from work, glowing, talking about new responsibilities, new compliments from her team, and how everyone said she had so much potential. She was ambitious, charismatic, the kind of woman who lit up a room. Everyone noticed it. And every time she talked about being underpaid, I'd tell her not to worry, that her hard work would eventually pay off. I meant it. I believed in her more than she believed in herself. To keep us afloat, I picked up extra gigs, night shifts, weekend deliveries. Whatever brought in a little more cash. Lily would kiss my cheek and say, "Just a little longer. Okay, once my career takes off, I'll spoil you." I'd laugh it off, letting her words keep me warm on the nights I barely slept. But slowly, little cracks began to show. Lily became strangely protective of her phone, angling the screen away from me even when she was just scrolling. Her schedule kept shifting. New deadlines, last-minute meetings, unexpected training sessions. It all sounded reasonable, but something inside me felt off. Still, I pushed the feeling down, telling myself I trusted her, because at that moment, I truly did. I didn't realize how much I was stretching myself thin until one night, I sat down with my bank app and saw how little I had left. I had been budgeting so aggressively, cutting back on meals, skipping things I enjoyed, avoiding new clothes just to keep us comfortable. And yet, Lily never seemed to notice how much weight I carried for both of us. She'd breezily say, "I'll cover next month's rent, I promise." But the next month always came with some excuse. A slow week at work, an unexpected bill, a delayed bonus. Meanwhile, I was the one quietly plugging the holes so our life didn't sink. I handled the groceries, the utilities, the random household expenses that popped up at the worst times. I even started preparing her lunches because she complained the cafeteria food made her feel sick. She'd thank me with a quick hug or a tired smile, but it always felt surface level, like she appreciated the convenience, not the sacrifice. And whenever I hinted that I felt overwhelmed, she'd say, "Babe, this is just temporary. My career is going to pay off soon. Just wait." But the more she talked about her job, the more one particular name kept slipping into her stories. Her boss. "He's so encouraging. He really believes in me. He's the kind of mentor everyone wishes they had." At first, I didn't think anything of it. I wanted her to have strong support at work. But then her tone changed whenever I asked simple questions like, "What does he think about your new project?" Or, "Did he approve your leave request?" She'd get defensive, snapping with, "Why are you interrogating me? It's just work." The uncomfortable truth lodged itself somewhere in my chest the night she got a text while we were watching a movie. Her phone lit up. She glanced at it and instantly shoved it under her pillow like it burned her. I tried to shrug it off, swallowing the anxiety. But something inside me tightened. It felt like the first small warning of a storm I wasn't ready to face. It wasn't just the phone anymore. Little things started changing, almost too subtly to notice until they weren't subtle at all. Lily began avoiding intimacy, brushing me off with soft excuses like, "I'm exhausted," or "It was such a draining day." I tried to be understanding. I told myself she was stressed, overwhelmed, maybe even burned out. But there was a distance growing between one I could feel even when she was lying right beside me. She started staying late at work, too. At first, it was once a week, then twice, then suddenly, late nights became her new normal. She'd text me at 9 or 10 p.m. saying, "Don't wait up." Still dealing with reports, but what bothered me wasn't the work. It was the tone, cold, rushed, like she was texting out of obligation rather than wanting to talk. And the worst part, she never came home tired on those nights. Instead, she walked through the door with a weird brightness, like something had energized her. I tried to plan date nights to reconnect. I'd reserve her favorite restaurant or prep a movie night, hoping we could get back to how things used to be. Every time she'd decline too tired, not in the mood, work drained me. But her social media told a different story. Photos from casual team hangouts she'd never mentioned. Her smiling at a dinner with coworkers, a picture of her at a rooftop bar on a night she told me. She came home and immediately fell asleep. Then came the slip-up that yanked the mask off. One weekend, we ran into one of her coworkers at a coffee shop. He casually said, "That team dinner was wild last night, wasn't it?" Lily froze. She hadn't mentioned a dinner. She told me she had a migraine and stayed home. The coworker's eyes shifted, sensing her panic. That was the moment the first real fracture split through the glass of everything I believed about us. And suddenly, I couldn't stop wondering what else she'd lied about. After that awkward encounter at the coffee shop, something in me changed just a little, but enough to make me pay attention. And almost immediately, things I used to overlook started screaming for my attention. It began with our shared credit card. I was reviewing statements like I always did, trying to balance our expenses, when I noticed unfamiliar charges from restaurants I'd never been to. Not fast food, not casual spots-hind places, the kind people go to for celebrations or dates. When I asked Lily about them, she barely looked up from her phone. "Oh, those work meals. You know how it is," she said, waving her hand like it was no big deal. But something felt off. She didn't sound irritated, she sounded rehearsed, like she had the answer loaded before I even finished the question. I tried to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. A few days later, I found the receipt. It was crumpled in her purse, clearly shoved in haste, and it showed 2 entrees, 2 desserts, a bottle of wine, and a timestamp from the exact night she told me she was drowning in paperwork at the office. I felt my heart drop into my shoes. When I confronted her, she looked at me with this cold, annoyed expression, like I had inconvenienced her. "Seriously? You're digging through my stuff now," she snapped. "I wasn't digging, I found it because your purse fell over," I said quietly. She rolled her eyes and muttered, "You're so paranoid. It was a business dinner. Stop overthinking." But her explanation had holes, and she didn't even bother to patch them. That night, I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the wall while she slept soundly beside me, as if nothing in the world was wrong. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the unease was spreading, crawling under my skin, and somewhere deep down, a small voice whispered that this wasn't the last lie I'd uncover. The unraveling didn't come from Lily, it came from a stranger. One evening, while I was folding laundry, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. At first, I thought it was spam, but when I opened it, my whole body went cold. "You deserve to know the truth about Lily." Attached was a photo, blurry, grainy, taken from a distance, but unmistakably showing Lily at a restaurant, leaning far too close to a man I immediately recognized as her boss. Their faces were angled toward each other, smiling in a way that cut me deeper than any argument ever could. My heart was pounding so hard, I felt dizzy. I confronted Lily right away because I couldn't hold the panic in. I showed her the message, the picture, everything. She didn't look shocked. She didn't even look confused. Instead, she burst into tears, grabbed her chest dramatically, and said, "Why would you think I'd ever do something like that? How could you not trust me after everything I've shared with you?" She flipped it so fast I felt like I was the cheater. "Who sent that?" she cried. "Do you know how humiliating this is? Someone at work must be targeting me." Her voice cracked, and she kept saying, "I can't believe you'd fall for this," over and over, until guilt shoved itself down my throat by the end of the night. I was the one apologizing, me, the guy paying rent, the guy working double shifts, the guy holding us together. But just as I started letting my guard down again, the unknown number messaged me a second time. This time with a short video clip. The angle was different, clearer, more intimate. Lily and her boss stepping out of a car together late at night, his hand on her lower back, her laughing like a version of herself I hadn't seen in months. Then came the text that changed everything. "I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it because you need proof." She's been lying for months. It wasn't spam. It wasn't random. It was someone on her team. Someone who knew exactly what I wasn't supposed to find out. I must have watched that video 10 times before my brain finally accepted what my eyes already knew. Lily wasn't tired. She wasn't overwhelmed. She wasn't just working late. She was stepping out of her boss's car with the kind of smile she used to save for the soft private one that made me fall in love with her in the first place. In the clip, he opened the passenger door, placed his hand on her waist like it belonged there, and she leaned into him like it was natural, familiar, practiced. When they walked toward the hotel entrance, her fingers brushed his in this unthinking, intimate way that shattered something fundamental inside me. A message followed seconds later. There's more if you want it. I'm tired of watching him destroy relationships. I stared at the text, my throat tight. Whoever this person was, they weren't lying. They weren't exaggerating. They were giving me the truth Lily had been burying under excuses and tears. I didn't confront her, not this time. Something in me snapped into a dark, steady calm. Instead of rage, I felt clarity. I realized that every long shift, every extra gig, every time I dragged myself home half dead, I had been working for a woman who was out with another man. And while I was counting coins to cover her half of the rent, she was flashing smiles across fancy dinner tables she never told me about. So I sat alone in the living room. Lights off, letting the video play on repeat while the world outside our apartment went quiet. The clock ticked, the refrigerator hummed. Rain tapped at the window. Everything sounded sharper, louder, as if my senses were trying to force me to absorb the full weight of what I had just seen. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't a drunken lapse in judgment. This was a pattern one. She'd been perfecting behind my back for months. A part of me died watching that clip, but another part woke up. The part that wasn't going to let this slide. While Lily slept peacefully beside me, her phone, tucked under her pillow like a dirty secret tie, made a decision. Not the impulsive kind fueled by rage, but the cold, calculating kind that only forms when your heart has been cracked open and the truth finally has room to breathe. I realized that confronting her now would only lead to tears, gaslighting, and more lies. She was good at twisting things, too good. So instead of exploding, I went silent. Silence, I learned, is the one thing a liar can't control. The first step was separating my finances. Sitting in my car during my lunch break, I opened a new bank account she knew nothing about. I moved small amounts of money at a time, nothing noticeable, nothing that would trigger suspicion. Every dollar I transferred felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, and as I watched my new balance grow, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: control. Then I began documenting everything: rent payments, grocery receipts, utility bills, gas expenses, screenshots of text messages where she promised to pay next month. Every broken promise, every dime I covered, every financial burden I carried, I turned it all into evidence. Not to punish her, but to prepare myself for the moment she'd pretend she'd done nothing wrong. At home, I pretended everything was normal. I brought her coffee in the morning. I kissed her forehead. I listened to her complain about work stress and her overbearing boss. I nodded, smiled, played my role so convincingly she didn't see the shift happening right under her nose. But I also stopped paying for the little things: her snacks, her ride shares, her sudden cravings for takeout. Whenever she asked, I'd say casually, "Can you cover it this time? I'm a bit tight," and every time she hesitated, annoyed at even the smallest inconvenience. It only confirmed what I already knew: she was never with me for the partnership, only the support. She didn't realize it yet, but the ground under her feet was already moving, and I was the one pulling the lever. I didn't plan on following her, it just happened. One evening, Lily got a call around 7 p.m., a work emergency, she said, already grabbing her bag before I could ask anything. Her voice was sharp, rushed, almost too eager. She kissed my cheek, barely grazed it, and muttered, "Don't wait up." Something in my chest twisted. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was denial, finally giving up. But as soon as the door shut behind her, I grabbed my keys and followed. I kept my distance, trailing her car through dimly lit streets and rain-slicked roads. The city looked blurry through my windshield, neon lights distorted by the drizzle, but I stayed focused on her taillights. She drove for 20 minutes before pulling into the same hotel from the video, the one burned into my memory. I parked far enough away to be invisible, close enough to see everything. My hands were shaking, not from anger, but from the sickening confirmation that I was about to watch my future collapse in real time. When she stepped out of her car, she wasn't stressed or frazzled like someone dealing with a work crisis. She was glowing. She smoothed her hair in the reflection of her window, adjusted her blouse, and smiled at herself. And then he arrived, her boss. He walked up casually, like this wasn't the first time, like he knew exactly where to put his hands. "Hey," she whispered as she slid into his arms. "I missed you," he murmured back. Her laugh, soft, familiar, intimate, cut me open. They walked inside together, fingers intertwined, disappearing behind the revolving doors like they were stepping into a world they'd built without me. And I just sat there, in my car, alone, watching the woman I loved walk into a hotel with another man. That moment was my rock bottom, my lowest point, the place where everything inside me hollowed out. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just stopped feeling for a minute. Because sometimes the deepest heartbreak isn't loud, it's quiet. It's the silence when you finally accept the truth. And as I sat there in the dark, one thought formed with chilling clarity. I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to end this my way. After that night, something inside me shifted permanently. Not in a dramatic, explosive way, but in a calm, razor-edged way that felt almost unnatural. I woke up the next morning and made breakfast like nothing had happened. But internally, I was already gone. The version of me who believed in her, who bent over backwards to support her, who thought loyalty could fix anything that man died in that parking lot. What remained was someone focused, deliberate, and terrifyingly steady. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to expose everything at once. I was going to extract myself, quietly, completely, and in a way she'd never see coming. The first thing I did was stop paying for anything she relied on. Subscription services, canceled. Grocery deliveries, removed my payment method. Auto payments for utilities, stopped. One after another, I disconnected myself from every financial thread tying us together. But I did it slowly, incrementally, so she wouldn't notice the pattern, until it was too late. The next step was my bank transfers. While she was at work, I'd move small amounts of money out of our shared account into the private one I'd created. Nothing big. Drip by drip, dollar by dollar, I reclaimed everything she'd taken for granted. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. One night, she called me from a grocery store, her voice tight with irritation. "Why did my card decline? Did you forget to transfer money?" I kept my tone calm. "Oh, I thought you were doing well at work. Didn't you say you got extra responsibilities?" She sighed sharply. "Just help me out, okay? It's embarrassing." I almost laughed, not outwardly, but internally. Embarrassment was the least of what was coming. Meanwhile, the coworker who had been messaging me kept feeding me information, screenshots, dates, times Lily left early or stayed late. Details that filled in every blank she'd left behind at home. Lily became increasingly irritable, snapping at me over small things as her stress piled up. Bills were late, rent was looming, and she couldn't figure out why everything suddenly felt heavier. She didn't know the safety net she'd always assumed was there had quietly vanished. And watching her scramble was only the beginning of what I had planned. It didn't take long for the chaos to start swallowing her whole. I could see it happening piece by piece, like watching dominoes fall in slow motion, each one tipping the next toward a disaster she never thought possible. The first real sign came one afternoon when Lily stormed into the apartment, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Her face was flushed, her eyes wide with panic. "They're investigating him," she said breathlessly. "HR, someone sent them. Something." She paced the living room like a trapped animal, running her hands through her hair. "This is going to ruin everything," she whispered. "If he goes down, I go down too." I sat on the couch, pretending to be confused. "Why would you go down? It's his conduct, not yours." The look she gave me was sharp, too sharp, because people talk, because HR twists things, because I've been close to him. There it was, the slip. The confession she didn't mean to reveal. I tilted my head. "Close how?" She froze, realizing she'd said too much. "Not like that. Just professionally." Her voice trembled. Her lie trembled with it. Meanwhile, the coworker kept feeding me updates. HR had indeed received screenshots, conversations, timestamps, messages that painted a picture Lily couldn't escape. Her boss was suspended pending an investigation, But the rumors spread faster than the facts. People whispered. Eyes followed her when she walked down the hall. Her mentor wasn't protecting her anymore. He wasn't even returning her calls. Financially, things got worse. Rent was overdue by almost 2 weeks. Utilities were stacking up. Her card kept declining. Every buffer she assumed I'd cover was gone, and the pressure was crushing her. One night, she sat at the table, surrounded by overdue notices, her hands trembling. "Babe, can you help me? Please." Her voice was small, desperate. I looked at her quietly and said, "I thought we were a team. Didn't you say your career was taking off?" She swallowed hard. "I can't handle this alone." The irony almost made me smile. She had no idea this. It was only the beginning of the collapse. The night everything finally snapped into place felt strangely calm. Too calm, actually. Lily sat at the dining table, surrounded by a battlefield of overdue bills, collection notices, and rent warnings. Her mascara was smudged, her hair pulled into a messy knot, and for the first time in months, she looked genuinely scared. Not annoyed, not irritated, scared. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes and whispered, "I need you, please. I can't do this alone." Her voice cracked, the same voice that used to sound so confident, so sure, so untouchable. But now it sounded like someone watching their world crumble. I took a slow breath, sat across from her, and said gently, "Why? What happened?" She rubbed her forehead. "They think I was involved with him. HR is digging into everything. People are talking. He won't answer my calls. They're saying he crossed boundaries and that I might have known." Her voice wavered. I could lose my job. I kept my tone even. "Did he cross boundaries?" She flinched like I'd slapped her. "No. I mean, maybe it looked like it, but nothing actually." I cut her off. "Lily, stop lying." Her eyes widened, completely blown open. What are you talking about?" she whispered. I reached into the folder I'd hidden beside the couch and placed it. On the table, slowly, deliberately, inside were the receipts. The credit card statements, the screenshots, the time-stamped logs of every night she lied to me. And on top of it all, the printed stills from the video, the one where she and her boss looked like a couple, walking into a hotel. Lily's face drained of color. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked between the papers, then at me, then back again, as if hoping the evidence would rearrange itself into something innocent. "It's all here," I said softly. "Every lie, every night you chose him over me." Her chair scraped backward as she stumbled to her feet. "I can explain." "No," I said. "You had months to explain." For a moment, she just stood there, shaking, silent, broken in a way she never expected to be. And then I watched something shift in her eyes, fear turning into desperation, because she finally realized she wasn't just losing her job, she was losing me. Lily reached for me like a drowning person reaching for air, but I stepped back. For the first time since we got together, she saw what it looked like when I no longer rushed to catch her. "Please don't leave," she whispered, her voice cracking into 1,000 pieces. "I made a mistake. I can fix this. We can fix this." Her hands trembled so violently she had to grip the edge of the table just to stay upright. But I felt nothing, not anger, not sadness, not even satisfaction, just a hollow sort of clarity. "I stayed loyal," I said quietly. "You didn't?" Her knees buckled, and she fell into the chair, sobbing into her hands like her world had been set on fire. Part of me wanted to feel sympathy, maybe, but then I remembered the hotel, the lies. The nights I worked double shifts while she was out drinking wine with a man she admired. I remembered the way she gaslit me, made me apologize for asking questions, made me feel guilty for noticing the truth, so I went to the bedroom and grabbed the small suitcase I had packed days earlier. Clothes, documents, my essentials. I had already moved everything important into my new bank account and a separate storage locker. The moment I zipped the suitcase closed, she finally realized this wasn't a fight, it was an ending. She followed me down the hall, crying so loudly the neighbors probably heard. "Please, you can't just walk away. I need you. I don't have anyone else." I paused at the door and turned to her, not cruelly, not coldly, just finally honest. "You didn't need me when you were sneaking around hotels," I said. "You didn't need me when you lied. You only need me now because the man you threw everything away for doesn't want you anymore." Her sobs collapsed into silence. It didn't hurt. It felt like stepping out of a burning house into clean air. Over the next weeks, the fallout hit her like a tidal wave. She was demoted, then suspended. Her boss was fired for misconduct. Rumors swallowed her reputation whole. Bills piled up. She had to move out of the apartment because she couldn't afford the rent without me. She texted me a few times long paragraphs begging for forgiveness, but I never responded because the truth is, the real revenge wasn't exposing her or screaming at her. It was leaving. It was taking back every penny, every hour, every part of myself she used, and watching her world collapse without my support. That was the closure I never knew I needed.